83 men. That's all it took. No cannons. No army. Yet before sunrise, one of Britain's most heavily armed frontier forts belonged to the Americans. Not a major battle. Not a bloody siege. Not a single shot was fired. So, how did 83 ordinary men accomplish what an entire army shouldn't have been able to do? In the spring of 1775, Fort Ticonderoga stood like a giant lock between New York and Canada. Whoever controlled this fortress controlled one of the most important routes in North America. Built by the French and later captured by the British, the fort guarded valuable cannons, gunpowder, supplies, and the only practical waterway connecting two worlds. To the British, it was a secure frontier fortress. To the American revolutionaries, it was something far more valuable, the key to survival. Without the weapons inside these walls, the Continental Army had little chance of standing against the British Empire. Capturing the fort could completely change the balance of the war. But there was one problem. The Americans didn't have an army large enough to take it. In fact, they barely had enough men to try. Most of these men weren't professional soldiers. They were farmers, blacksmiths, hunters, and ordinary frontiersmen who had never fought inside a major fortress. Their leader, Ethan Allen, believed speed was more powerful than numbers. If they hesitated, British reinforcements could arrive at any moment. Every hour mattered. Every delay made the mission more dangerous. By sunrise, surprise would be gone forever. The plan depended on one impossible advantage: reaching the fort before anyone inside realized the Revolutionary War had truly begun. There would be no second chance. If even one sentry spotted them too early, 83 volunteers could be trapped and destroyed within minutes. As the first light touched the horizon, the towering walls of Fort Ticonderoga emerged from the fog. The moment of truth had arrived. As the boats touched the shore, something immediately went wrong. Several men hadn't arrived. There weren't enough boats to bring everyone across the lake. Ethan Allen faced a choice. Wait, and lose the element of surprise, or attack immediately with barely half the force he expected. He never hesitated. Those who are here, follow me. The rest would have to catch up, if they could. The British still had no idea anyone was there. Every step carried the Americans deeper into the heart of the fortress. Then, a sentry finally noticed movement. For one frozen moment, both sides simply stared at each other. Before the alarm could spread, Ethan Allen demanded the impossible. He ordered the entire British garrison to surrender immediately.
In the name of the great Jehovah and the Continental Congress!
Captain William Delaplace was pulled from his bed by frantic shouting. Half awake, he stepped into the corridor, only to find armed Americans already inside his fort. Delaplace couldn't understand how they had crossed the lake, entered the fortress, and reached his headquarters without a single alarm. Ethan Allen gave him almost no time to think. Surrender the fort, or face an attack that Delaplace believed had already begun. In reality, the Americans were dangerously outnumbered. But in those chaotic moments, perception mattered more than numbers. Delaplace made a decision that would surprise generations of historians. He ordered his men not to fight. In less than an hour, one of Britain's most valuable frontier forts had changed hands. Not through overwhelming force, but through speed, surprise, and absolute confidence. The victory at Fort Ticonderoga wasn't measured by the number of soldiers captured. It was measured by what the Americans found inside. More than 50 heavy cannons, thousands of cannonballs, and enough military supplies to arm a growing revolution. Months later, Those same cannons were dragged hundreds of miles across frozen mountains by Colonel Henry Knox, one of the greatest logistical missions in American history. When those cannons finally reached the hills overlooking Boston, everything changed. Facing weapons they could no longer ignore, the British abandoned Boston, giving the American Revolution its first great strategic victory. It all began with 83 ordinary men, a silent crossing before dawn, and a fortress that was captured without a single shot. But this was only the beginning. Because the next battle would force an entirely new nation to answer one impossible question. Could a citizen army defeat the most powerful empire on earth?